18 months, everything will be in turmoil again. And then Khan will be, once again in the top one of being the finance.
Calm down, he said, but not out.
We're gonna try to get on the upper hand and see when it's coming. Oh, they're words. Yeah. That's it. Once we get it. Pay attention.
2 years of practice.
What done before? Did it without it?
No, I think what happened. Zero jobs.
Oh.
So what it is, they did an argument. You did this. I just did it too.
Because we were doing it from a different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't recognize that network.
Sure. They match.
I know, thoughts are the same. I work on that too. Every week. It changed.
Well, welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of the City of Harbor Springs Planning Commission to order. This is a special meeting. It's Thursday, February 8th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. local time. And thank you to everybody who's joining us online and who came out tonight. Really appreciate your engagement and can't wait to learn from you. And we only have one thing on the agenda tonight, and this is a special public hearing on the proposed zoning code update that this group's been working on for more than a year now. And we'll get into the public hearing itself in just a minute, but we start out every meeting with a chance for people to address the Planning Commission about something that's not on the agenda tonight. And so if it's something other than the zoning code rewrite, and you have some input for the Planning Commission, an idea, feedback, advice, beef, whatever, now is your time, and you would have 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind.
Bill, if I could interject.
If we could just start off with roll call, I'd appreciate that.
Well, that's a great idea, Jeff.
Sorry to interrupt you. Rick Tarczynski.
Here.
Vanessa Warren.
Here.
Emily Dubé.
Here.
Tony Johnson.
Here.
Bill Mulder.
Here.
Mark Day.
Here.
Barry Lustgarten.
Here.
Nancy Rondo.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great.
And to add to Bill's public comment, if you are on Zoom, you can raise your Zoom hand to make a comment and I will unmute you.
Great. Let's start with people in the room. Anybody have anything not on the agenda tonight that we should know about? Yes, ma'am. Could you please stand up and say your name and address?
Linda Rockwitz, 519 East Third Street. And I just came because this all started with you guys. At the meeting before last, at the city council meeting before last, where your recommendation for doing another study on bluff vegetation management was proposed. At that meeting, I proposed that we form a committee similar to the Bells Committee. And I just wanted to make sure that, everybody, that you guys understood too, that my position is not for this committee to push for regulation. My hope is that, we can, open lines of communication and information. You all have a lot more information than I think even those of us who live above or below the bluff may have. And I hope what comes of it is a consensus of what the best practices would be. So I just wanted to share that so that, you know what.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Could you stand?
Jonathan Wayman, 43 East Third Street. And probably for the first time, Lynn and I disagree with some. It's important for me to make sure we have the definitions with regard to the bluff study down at the city council level. Because I've read the minutes and the planning commission recommended council obtain estimates for a slope stabilization study of the bluff. And is that in fact the limitation of your recommendations?
This is your time to address
Okay,
us.
all right.
Yeah.
It's not, it's a quick way, it's not clear to me. Anyway, the minutes of the meeting go on to say, it did not make sense to enact regulations without evidence of a problem, or if there is a problem, without knowing the cause and potential solutions. I provided to council, I'm surprised at if there's a problem conclusion, and I think this is something that you're probably gonna have to weigh in on, but I'll make this relatively brief. By the way, if you're all interested in doing research on the problem of washouts, you can do it at ggood.us. It's the Greenwood Cemetery, interestingly, where you can actually do word searching of harbor. In any event, I did that. 1975, there was a 22-foot wide by 10-foot deep washout on Moose Hill. This is now West Bluff, pardon me, East Bluff on 4th. 1996, it's kind of interesting because this is 1996 and it's the exact issue that you're dealing with today. Earlier this year, 4th Street residents complained to city officials when tree trimming behind their homes left the hillside nearly bare. I mean, that's what got started, this whole process now, because of what happened on East 3rd Street. The 1996 downpour causes bluffs washout on 4th Street, rocks, sand, mud, and other debris, etc. And this is Fred Bruder speaking now. Several weeks ago, we had a similar situation on Harrison Street. It happened for years. 1998, washout worries 4th Street. It's small writing. Torrential rains again caused it. Bruder said that the city, with the Michigan Department of Transportation, had proposed reconstruction of 119th. Now, this is 1996, and I understand it's 2023, and they're finally dealing with it. In other words, they've recognized the problem. Now, I didn't find anything on East 3rd Street. But there are people who live there, don't live there now, who were there when there were 2, possibly 3 washouts on East 3rd Street. I've asked Monica Covio, who lived there, to call the city manager to provide the facts. John Paul Kloss was there as well, and I don't know if they're going to talk about the same washout. The Rockwoods then bought the property in that area. They had a separate washout, as I understand the detail of which I don't remember. And when we bought our house, the former owner told me that they had regraded the property behind the house because there was a torrential rain and he wanted to move the rain around the side of the house. Well, I looked at the regrading and I couldn't figure out why, because it appears there wasn't any slope that pushed the water around the house. So putting two and two together and starting to investigate what's been going on in the bluff, it appears that our property was infected by those washouts as well. And I've asked, as I said, I think Monica, to give our city manager a call so she can provide it. So there's no dispute of fact, in fact, that there have been washouts in the area.
Probably better bring it to a conclusion, John.
All right, well, this is an important fact. A 2020 or 2000, I think, study done with regard to what was going on out on Lake Michigan. The expert there said, and I quote, I recommend that all steep greater than 50% slope bluff sites be considered unstable. And if you look east on East Third, we've got more than a 50% slope. Now, this doesn't affect everyday stuff. It's the atmospheric river that might end up on top of this. So yes, we do have a problem. And the question is how we go about dealing with it. And where I disagree with Linda is there's a long history where there has not been cooperation between neighbors in connection with maintenance of the bluff. And the bluff stabilization plan, almost the bluff stabilization plan that the city has on its property recognizes the stability issue and provides a method by which people can maintain their views. And I would think people above the bluff and below the bluff and this commission would agree stability of the bluff is a big public issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. All right, anyone else in the room have anything they'd like to offer? All right, how about on Zoom, Victor?
Don't see any hands raised.
There's someone back here.
Yes, ma'am. You may have come in late, but what we're commenting on are things not on tonight's agenda.
Not on.
Not on tonight's agenda, and then we're going to in depth on
Thank
the,
you.
just in case that's where you were going.
Thank you.
I will comment, because John Wayman brought it up, that the state is planning to put out bids in April for the repair of M119. That should probably start late summer, early fall for that construction, that fix of the M119. I don't know the plans in detail, Lucas knows, but it seems like it's a elaborate curbing system to curb the water away from washing down the hill. So,
All right, thanks, everybody. Well, why don't we get into the agenda then? And the only thing on the agenda tonight is the public hearing on the zoning code rewrite project. And we would need a motion to open the public hearing.
I move to open the public hearing.
Second. So there's a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Mike, okay, guys? Good, thank you. And do we do a voice vote on that? I would say yes.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor of any discussion, first of all? No. All in favor of opening the public hearing, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Say nay. All right, public hearing is open and it is 5:41 p.m. when the public hearing was open. All right, what we thought we could do that would be most effective for members of the public is to give you a quick overview of the background and rationale for this project and a bit about what we're actually recommending so that you've got a basis to make your comments and suggestions. Sound good? Good. Planning Commission has seen elements of this several times, so I'm going to try to streamline things a little bit. But I thought it was important to tell you, members of the public and folks watching, why we're doing this. So here's the outline of what I'm going to share with you tonight. And the purpose of the public hearing tonight is to present our recommendations. And this is, there's been a subcommittee of the Planning Commission, and they've been working in depth over the past year to present a recommendation to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission hasn't adopted it, hasn't been asked to vote on it or anything. So this meeting is an important step in the process. We're looking to get input and ideas and to prepare for a presentation to City Council, perhaps in March, if everything comes together. And here's the timeline. Tonight is February 8th, special Planning Commission meeting, and we're going to do the same thing again next week, next Thursday, same time, same place. And then we're planning commission to feel confident and comfortable in adopting this. They could vote on that and we could bring it to city council for a preview on March 4th. Ask for their approval on March 18th. In between now and then, changes can be made. Everything's fluid based on what we hear. And you may ask why update the zoning code? And the main reason is that by law, every municipality has to do a master plan for their community every 10 years, and we've just completed doing that. And now the zoning code has to sync from with that. It flows from the master plan. The other thing is that we want to be proactive in anticipating the future needs of Harbor Springs residents. We don't want to be reactive. And we see that there's a partial, in terms of homes, which is probably the most important to most people, there's a partial mismatch between the type of homes that our current zoning code favors and those that we think, and experts tell us, that residents are going to want in the near future. And I'll show you about our demographics. It's significant about our aging population and where that's going. And another philosophical issue is to provide more choices to residents about how they use their property. And what we're seeing mostly about that is people want to stay in their homes rather than going to assisted living. There may be some options that they can have to do that they don't have today. And then housing demand in the region remains high. And I'll show you how. All right, here are resources that we've used. A year ago, Beckett and Rader, our planning consultant, gave us a seminar on actually this document, the Zoning Reform Toolkit, put together by the American Planning Association, Michigan chapter. And it's kind of a cookbook for cities and towns to look at their zoning to make it more flexible and to have better opportunities for its residents. Here's some other resources that we've dipped in with. AARP has some pretty well-developed recommendations about what older residents are going to want in the future, and that's been helpful. There's a, this is called a pattern book, and it's from the Michigan Municipal League. They've been thinking about housing as well, with different ideas about new styles, which are really old styles. And then Beckett and Rader is our contract firm. And here are our demographics, and this is the one that really jarred us during the master planning process. The gray box is the city of Harbor Springs, so that's us, our little 1 1/4 square mile area. And then the blue area is our surrounding area, all of 49740. So it's parts or all of 6 northern townships to us. And the things that jumped out to us is that the population of people 60 years and over in Harbor Springs City is 54.5%, and the surrounding area is 40%. So we are significantly older than our surrounding areas. And total population is 1088 in based on this survey, and that's our full-time population. So people live here, vote here, and full-time. And we probably have double to triple that for non-full-time residents. The other thing that really jumped out at us was the number of one-person households. We have 43% of our households are a single person, and that is way higher than the surrounding area of 27%, and way higher than the state. So what we're seeing is in the city, our residents are significantly older, and we have so many single-person households. So that has us thinking a lot about what people are going to need in the future. Okay. And so that's where we've been. And here's what population projections are for Emmett County. There's nothing at a city level in terms of future predictions, but this tells us that in terms of the 60-plus-year-old range, we're going to grow, or that segment is going to grow 15% on average by 2045. And the county population as a whole is only going to grow by 2.5%. So we're definitely getting older. And based on what we've seen, we may experience even higher growth of the older segment. And here's an interesting fact from the US Census. We used to have about 300 more full-time residents than we do today. And, you know, who knows what the reasons are for that? It's a variety of reasons, no doubt, but yeah, we used to have 300 more full-time residents than we do today, and that was only 20-some years ago. And here are comments that we've heard from people. And so a typical one is, I don't need this big house now. I wish I could find a nice smaller one near stores. Now that I'm older, I don't want to live in the country. I want to move into town and near conveniences. My parents want to stay in their home, but would need a smaller one-story house in order to do that. Someone else would say, I would love to have a low-maintenance house in town for 6 months and travel the rest of the time. We're a young couple and we don't want a big home to take care of. And I'm not ready to own a home yet. I wish I could just find a nice place to live. And so that's what we're hearing at every one of these meetings. I've kind of checked it with the audience and said, you know, does this resonate with you? And, you know, these thoughts you've had, or these things you're hearing from friends, relatives, the reaction has always been yes, makes sense. And so we went to the AARP survey that they did in 2018, and they confirmed 86% of people said they wanted to remain in the current community and the current home. They don't want to go to assisted living. They don't want to have to move somewhere else. So we have changing needs statewide. This isn't just a Harbor Springs trend, this is nationwide and statewide. Households are getting older and smaller. One-person households are on the rise. And another one that's really grabbed us is that the makeup of a household is fluid, and multi-generational households are increasing. So, you know, adult children move back in, parents move in with adult children, spouses, friends come and go. And so household isn't just, you know, 2 people with 2.5 children anymore. It's fluid and it's always changing. And we've got a shortage of assisted living options today, and all projections are that it's only going to get worse in the future. And, you know, where are we going to find caregivers for all of us? And older people would like to age in place. Everybody says they want to walk and bike more and drive less. And what's another interesting fact is that older and younger people say they often want similar housing options. They may not prefer a detached single dwelling home like it's always been traditional. And then to round out the data for your analysis tonight, here's the housing gap estimate, and it's significant. And this is at a county level also, from a recent study from 2023. And in the county, we need almost 3,300 housing units, combination of rentals as well as for sale units. And then taking a fair share of the Harbor Springs area needs about, what is that? 750 housing units. In our little city, we need about 125 if we were to take our fair share of that demand. And it's a combination of rental as well as for sale units. So demand is high. So we're getting older. We have a lot of single family households. We think people are perhaps going to want some different options than they have today. And that's the reason why we're launching this. Yeah. So now we're moving into the actual changes that the subcommittee has been recommending. And the first one are just structural changes in the zoning code. We're looking to simplify, streamline, modernize, replace words with tables and illustrations where possible. And if there are requirements that are already in the building code, which is managed by the county, we didn't see a need to duplicate or change that in most cases. And we're going to sync with the nearby townships and the county where possible, and eliminate bureaucratic processes where we can. So. And the first part of that is we have 17 existing zoning districts in our little city. They've grown up over the years. for good reasons. And, but it seems, way too complex. And each one of those zoning districts had its own rules. Some were just minor variations on another one. And, it was hard for residents to understand. It was hard for, builders to understand. Anybody who used it, it was complicated. And so, this whole group actually did some work to try to figure out how we could reduce the number of zoning districts, and we did. We have a recommendation that would take it down to about, I think it's 9 new zoning districts. And so we'd be collapsing from 17 to 9. And on the next page, it tells us how that's done. And the meat of the issue is to combine existing residential zoning districts into a single one called residential neighborhood. Any property that has waterfront access is a waterfront residential district. So that's a big slimming. And I know some people are interested in talking about the agricultural residential district that exists today. And we've also slimmed down the businesses. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 business districts, and now we're going down to 2. So any business district below the bluff would be part of the CBD. Any district above the bluff will be part of B1, I think we're calling it. This is kind of geeky stuff, but it's an important way that we think we can simplify. And so here's a quick summary of what would the key uses in the residential district. And this is the one that's going to cover most of the square miles of Harbor Springs. And the uses that would be allowed there would be single family, single dwelling now, duplexes, triplexes, and a thing called accessory dwelling units. I'll tell you about in the future shortly. In terms of commercial uses, this is another significant idea that from this recommendation. That is, we'd allow home occupations, so that's an accountant sitting at the kitchen table or someone doing remote work, that kind of thing. And then we're also considering an idea called an accessory commercial unit, which would allow some low impact businesses to exist out of somebody's house, maybe perhaps a separate building, perhaps an attached structure. Residential waterfront is about the same. Residential multiple is a small one, this is where our apartments are and things like that. And we would continue to have multifamily, 5+ housing, cluster housing. Someone could build a single dwelling unit there, special approval, a duplex, triplex, quadplex. Any commercial uses would be pretty similar, but this is where a hotel motel use could go. Mobile home park is a significant part of our community, and that stays pretty much unchanged. Here are the business districts. We're looking for a slight expansion of the geography of the central business district, so all the businesses below the bluff. And residential uses there remain pretty much the same. So in terms of residential, you have upper floor residential uses above stores and offices. Commercial uses would be a ton, retail, food, alcohol, many more. And above the bluff, there would be some more residential uses. Again, single family, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, accessory dwelling units, and then this is where the strip mall are, IGA, everything above the bluff. Waterfront district stays pretty much the same. Then manufacturing is where the boat storage is up on Sweet Street. And we've added just a couple things like the micro brewing and some other things that people might want to explore. And then the community district, this is where pretty much city land for government offices and recreation parks. And then there's a concept that we learned about called the flag lots, which we're recommending that we implement. And that would allow someone with a very deep lot to potentially sell off the back part of their lot so that someone else could build a home there. And, you still need to have access to the street. That's the flag pole, and the flag itself is right there. And, I think that gives you some property owners some options that they don't have today, and could perhaps get a few more models homes built in the city. And then, this is information on our multi-unit options, like the first one is a duplex. And duplexes used to be quite dominant in our country and in our cities, and they've kind of fallen out of favor over the years. And single family zones have eclipsed these. And all of our sources are strongly recommending that communities consider these for their residents now. And what we learned is that they can be very attractive, can be an efficient approach to filling missing middle needs. And we said that they have to meet the same dimensional requirements as a regular single dwelling home. And so they can't be bigger, they can't encroach any farther on the property than the setbacks that we've already defined. And you might have 2 doors, might have 2 front doors, you might have 3 front doors. That's what we're recommending. And the benefits are that it, next page, I think, benefits. And I guess we do. But, a property owner, if they had a duplex or could create a duplex, could have a caregiver live in one side, could have a family member live in one side, or they could rent it out to somebody long-term and to provide some more housing opportunities. And then triplexes, we said the same thing, have to meet the same dimensional requirements as a single family home. And it would require special land use approval because it's getting just a little bit bigger with the 3 doors. And quadplexes would be very limited only in the residential, multiple and the B1 district, and they would require special land use approval. And here's the concept that I was mentioning, it's called accessory dwelling unit. Cities and towns all over the country are assessing these right now, including Petoskey and Traverse City and really everywhere. And this is the idea of having a secondary house or apartment on your property where it could be attached or it could be detached. And these are some common forms that we see around Harbor Springs. And it can't be bought or sold separately. So it's one of the 2 accessory buildings that you could have on your property. And that would require the same dimensional requirements as other accessory buildings. And the benefits are that this is what potentially could help somebody adapt to their changing household needs. So if they had grown kids move back in, or if they wanted to live in a smaller place and their kids live in their big house and have some distance and separation and privacy, somebody could implement an accessory dwelling unit. And the one thing that we drew the line was to say that they cannot be used as a short-term rental opportunity. So it could be used as a long-term rental, which would help the community.
I have a question regarding your terms.
Okay, remember that. And then here's kind of a variation on the accessory dwelling unit. That's the accessory commercial unit. This is the concept of having a small scale neighborhood business, which could exist, could be attached to the home, could be detached. Would require limited hours and limited signage and limited paved surfaces. And somebody could operate a pretty benign business out of their home and be closer to the community. Grab a drink. Thanks, Doug. And let's see the next slide. Here are the businesses that we thought would be a good way to start this would be professional services like accounting, architecture, etc. Counseling, tutoring, art lessons, music lessons. People have been giving piano lessons out of their homes for centuries. Coffee shop, cafe, or deli, maybe a yoga studio, hair salon, seamstress, tailor alterations, or specialty food or flower shop. And the benefits of the accessory commercial easement would be effectively strengthen our 15-minute walkable city. That's the holy grail that cities around the world are trying to get to make key services available to the residents within 15 minutes walking. And could provide some valuable services closer to home, prevent some driving, build a sense of neighborhood community, and allow somebody to earn some extra income from their home without starting a storefront or some really major investment. And we think it could help attract some more full-time residents. And if you may be wondering, wow, that doesn't sound like anything you've had lately. Well, it turns out it is. We have a long history of businesses in neighborhoods and did an informal survey of some longtime residents in Herbert Springs. And here's what they recall have been in neighborhoods. So these are not downtown. Flower shops, small market or a party store, fish market, vacuum and sewing machine repair, hair salon, barber shop, hotel, motel, even a sawmill. I'm not advocating for a sawmill these days. Even auto repair, restaurant, paint retailer, gas station. We've got gas stations in the business area where they belong, so that wouldn't be part of this proposal by any means. Flower gardens, resale shop, plumbing supply, dinner club. And I just heard today about a tea house on Pine Street that used to exist. And okay, changing subjects now. One of the other things that we're trying to reduce are administrative processes and time. So when a resident brings an idea to get a zoning permit so that they can begin construction, we're going to have clearer standards perhaps than we've had today. And we're going to allow more kinds of approvals by an administrative committee rather than special land use by the whole planning commission, with the expense and the time and all that's been involved in those. And an applicant or committee could still elect to have a full site plan review if that's what they want from the planning commission. And planning commission members, this is a new slide. It came based on a conversation that we had recently. And that is that, you know, as we're conceiving these new ideas, we have to be aware that many of them would likely be overridden by private organizations within the city. So we set the zoning. That's kind of the baseline for every property in the city. But if somebody's part of a condo association or a resort association or any kind of neighborhood or whatever association, mobile home parks, any other lease deeds or conservation easement, they may have much stricter requirements than city zoning code. So someone who is part of the Glen Drive Association has a whole lot of restrictions. And we have these all over the place. Sand driving, right? And is a condo. Birch Court is a condo. I'm sure you can name them. So anyway, you know, as we're thinking about these changes, they're not going to help everyone. So people may already be kind of bounded by an association that they elected to become part of, or their house was part of when they go on it. And we don't know how many of our approximately 1,200 dwelling units would be part of that, but there are an awful lot of condo associations. So is it 25%, 33% of properties in the city that could be governed by those things in addition to the zoning code? So that's what we have for you tonight by way of a briefing, and then we're eager to hear your thoughts. So let me go back. And the rules for public comment at any meeting are everybody gets a chance to have one comment. You have a 3-minute maximum, so tighten it up. Give us your thoughts. And it could feel funny because it's your chance to address the planning commission. So it's not a chance to have a conversation, discussion, or an argument with somebody on the planning commission. And if a resident is making a comment and then asks a question, like, and we're all just sitting here, we're not supposed to answer individual questions or get into a discussion. So what we'll do though, is we'll take notes on, comments, topics, questions that are raised, and then we can, have the planning commission come back and discuss those. So I think we'll take care of it in any event. And, we'll look for folks online as well as those in the room. And the way we start is to introduce yourself and say your address, even if we know you, or folks watching might not know you. We'd like to get started.
Hi there, my name is Kenny Stewart. I live on 30 Sayan Drive, northwest corner of town, and it will be in an area that will be converted from light agriculture to residential neighborhood, the surrounding areas of my neighborhood. And I submitted some issues on paper, submitted them to Victor, and I presume that you've seen those and you're working through those. I won't dwell on those items now, but I do have one new additional item or augmenting one item. And that is, in your presentation, you spoke of a condo association. And once it's created, it may very well have more strict zoning requirements or guidelines or whatever, which is certainly possible. My concern is, could that same association adopt something that is, I'll say, more off the beaten path of what you're recommending? Perhaps more smaller lots, more density of apartment dwellings, other types of things that would not be in keeping with where you're going with your new plan. So I guess what I'd like you to do is see if there's the danger, I'll call it, of someone simply overwriting all of your work by creating a condo association and then creating something that could be unsatisfactory for our neighborhoods and for our town. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody online? As Victor says, you can raise your Zoom hand.
Molly, please unmute yourself.
Hello, Molly. Come in, Molly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I just wanted to reiterate again that I think the flag lots are a great idea.
Hey, Molly, could you introduce yourself, please, too?
Oh, sure. I'm Molly Keegan, and I have a property on State Street. And it happens to be a deep lotted property. And so I think the flag lot's a great idea because it doesn't change the look or feel of Harbor Springs at all. Everything would still look the same, only you would have more housing within the 1.2 miles or whatever by allowing that.
Thank you very much. As long as we're on Zoom, anyone else on Zoom? How many people do we have on Zoom, Vicki? Like 5? What?
12.
12, okay, great. Folks in the room? Floor is yours. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mark Rondell, 181 Zoll Street. First of all, I'd like to apologize for reading because that's the only way I can stay within the 3-minute limit. So first, I guess, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all of you, especially those on the advisory subcommittee and the city staff who've all worked so diligently and to produce this document. That's been a long stretch, so thank you. Secondly, I would urge you to promptly recommend this code to the city council for adoption. I'm not going to delve into any specifics of my reservations about the proposed new code, as I am acutely aware of how easy it is to become mired in details and lose track of critical general principles. As most of you are aware, I doubt that we will see much of an increase in proposals for development due to this new code, since there remain an overwhelming number of special use and dimensional restrictions attached to each zoning category. However, I am elated that these updates signal a first step toward realigning our growth and development guidelines. They indicate a positive shift in the thinking of the Planning Commission. It seems that the commission now acknowledges the imperative for proactive planning, encouraging growth and development in the city that will best serve residents and visitors in years to come. This contrasts with the activities of the Planning Commission in the past, where virtually all time and effort were spent responding reactively to various proposals brought before it by property owners and developers. What quote unquote planning occurred then was by default, as the commissioners made subjective case-by-case decisions based on the pros or cons of various projects. Now, we have a new code where planning is occurring intentionally as an objective response to articulated goals and desired outcomes. Quite a different situation. I understand that state requirements drive some of the work of the Planning Commission, but I think it is even more important for the commission to engage in enlightened and visionary proactive planning if we are to keep the aspects of life in Harbor Springs that we say we treasure. And speaking of planning, I would like once again to remind you of my convictions regarding the need for elaboration and focus on our master plan. I am convinced that every effort spent making this document more comprehensive and better defined will improve its utility as a reference and as a more accurate description of the most significant goals of this community. The better this reference document is, the more we can rely on when making decisions about the future of our community. Any time and effort spent enhancing the master plan will be repaid many times over by making all our future planning processes much more efficient and effective. Again, I ask you to please recommend this new zoning code for adoption to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions?
Well, so I apologize because I found out about this 2.5 hours ago from my wife, and I was told to attend because she couldn't. So my name is William Basandi. I'm at 626 West Bluff Drive. So I'm dead center in the middle of the agricultural area. I'm not here so much for me, but I know I've got neighbors who are interested in doing agriculture still on those lots that are still big enough for it. My concern is, what kind of hoops are they going to be forced to jump through? I'm a little more libertarian person. My personal opinion is it's my property gets stuffed, which is why my wife usually comes to these. But yeah, there are going to be clearly defined regulations, especially for the lot, because we're big enough lot. We could, if we wanted to have some light agricultural project if we wanted to, and my daughter loves the outdoors, so orchards, stuff like that. What kind of hoops are we going to be forced to jump through? And I get the need for the planning, simplifying, and I'm all for cutting out bureaucracy. But for those people, we have a farmer's market, we have small business stuff. That option is great, but to totally take out that agricultural aspect is kind of stupid to me. That's just my very blunt New York take on this.
Thank you.
Bill, I received a text message for someone online to know how to raise their hand, so.
Okay,
do you want me to
yeah,
do that?
great.
Liana, if you could unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I just have one question that I wanted to get on the book.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Liana Davis Peachy, 325 East 3rd Street.
Thanks.
So, the question I have is in regard to short-term rental. I noticed in the handout, I read through the whole thing and all it said in the packet was that that would be addressed under the short-term rental rules. But with the changing of this zoning, my license now no longer falls under the R2, which is duplex. And so I'm just wondering how I fit in now since there's a limited number of licenses. And does that mean I go to the bottom of a pile or I've lost my license or what's happening there?
Okay, I understand your question.
Thank you.
See, that feels weird where we didn't get to actually answer a question. I'm sorry. We'll come back to that for sure.
We have another one on Zoom, Scott Heston. Scott,
Hello, Scott, come in.
Hello, my name is Scott Heston. I'm at 684 West Bluff Drive. I apologize, I was having a little trouble unmuting as well. I am in the agricultural residential zone, as the previous speaker mentioned, he was. And I'm concerned that in the introduction that you gave of slides, you showed a whole bunch of reasons why certain things would change. But I didn't see any reason in there why you were removing the agricultural residential zones of the city. And I'm hoping that in the next meeting, you can maybe take some time to address the reason why you have chosen to remove that right to farm from the zoning choices here. I'm currently in that agricultural zone. My parcel is the front half of one of the original 10-acre parcels that were divided out in the late 1890s as a farm. The current farmhouse dates from 1901, but the barn on the property is attached to the original dwelling structure that was from before that. The property has been used as an orchard since its earliest period and has horses, chicken coops, that sort of thing in its 100-plus-year history. When I bought this house and incidentally spent a great deal of money restoring that barn and developing the land, it was with the intent to continue farming it. So I was surprised to find out that the city intended to rezone my property as residential and also to essentially eliminate all agricultural residential zones in the city, which I would note include popular businesses like Christian's Renolda Greenhouses and Bluff Gardens. Both of those are agricultural residential. And would require, I would gather, some new permissions to continue business. Under the reasons why the city intends to make this change, the commission listed that they wanted to be proactive in anticipating the needs of Harbor Springs residents. And I would argue that the right to grow food is essential to the future of any town, and taking away that right does seem short-sighted. The Harbor Springs Farmers Market was mentioned earlier. It's very popular. It's a well-supported venture in the city. And any time that it is open, I would say that it defines the character of the town and in a very positive way. I would prefer that the city didn't say, sure, you can sell your produce here, but make sure you don't grow it locally. They have noted in the presentation deck also that agricultural uses might be allowed by special approval. And yet you were saying earlier that you were hoping to simplify the code and eliminate bureaucratic processes. I would argue that that does the opposite. I would like to ask the Planning Commission to consider collapsing the zoning districts from 17 down to 10 rather than 9, and to please keep the agricultural residential district exactly as defined in the current zoning code. That would assist in meeting the goal number 8 in the master plan, which is to explore the establishment of a cottage food and craft industry incubator that would function as a hub for entrepreneurs, as described in
Scott, you gotta wrap up your comments.
Okay. It would also go to support farmers that and those in the food production, allowing them to contribute to the local economy. It would prevent the Planning Commission by being flooded by those special use permits. And not incidentally, and I say this with great emphasis, not incidentally, it would protect the city from running afoul of the Michigan Right to Farm Act. I would love it if you guys would address that again at the next meeting, how removing the agricultural residential zone does not violate the Michigan Right to Farm Act. Thank you.
Scott, we got it right. Okay. Thank you. We take your point. Very well said. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Lisa Morris. I live at 7997 South Lake Shore Drive. And I agree with Scott and some of the other people who have spoken today to keep the agricultural district and kind of flip the special use permit thing. So if you're gonna make it residential and require the agricultural to get special use permit, flip that, keep the agricultural zoning and make the duplex, triplex, multiplex, make them get the special use permits.
Thank you.
I'm Sue Winter from 588 State Street. Actually, there were 3 different topics that caught my attention. I'll try to stick to one. I really think the most important thing in the master plan is the section that talks about retaining the character and historical, I don't know all the words, charm of the town. I think everything should be judged on that factor. I don't think the flag lots, they sound like they'd be in an urban area that was dense and nobody cares about, cramming more housing in. Let's see. Triplexes, I think duplexes probably would be fine, but anything more than that, I don't think fits in that character at all. And the other thing that really caught my attention was ACU, is that right? Accessory commercial units. I think that's right. But I mean, yes, there were those around town, but times have changed tremendously. And I think the premise that you need walkable places, I mean, you can go from north to south in 10 minutes, east to west, probably in 20 minutes walking. It seems very silly that we're not walkable now. So why do you need to put commercial, a deli, a bakery? I mean, if this goes through, I would get my little Amish building put on my corner, which is a very prominent corner in Harbor Springs, and open my bakery, Megan's Mom's Cookies. I'd put muffins, and then I'd have my flowers. And, there's flower shops in town. There's 3 bakeries in town that pay rent. And I just don't think that's fair to the businesses in town. I mean, I'd love to do it, but I'd be half the price that they were because they don't have overhead. I can just see this happening all over town. People jump into these things. And I think it would really destabilize our neighborhoods. You can walk down and get coffee downtown very easily. And I would, when your ice cream cones, you don't need to go next door. Is my time up?
Oh, yeah, 40 seconds.
You're going.
Keep going.
The fact that there were 300 people 20 years ago, I mean, I was here then. It was very quiet when there were those extra 300 people here. Every single year, I'm sure Kathy knows, she lives right down the street from me. It's every year, it's busier and busier and busier. There's more, I don't care, those 300 people are gone. They came from somewhere and they're here in droves. And the police they can't take care of the speeders that we have now. And I can't imagine putting, all these other units that zoning would allow. I like special use permits. I think that's the way to go. If you want a flag lot, go before you guys. If you want a duplex, let's keep it that way. I don't think it's a blanket.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Jacob Claus. I live on 781 West Lake Street, in the agricultural zone as well. And so my concerns tonight are specific to that region of the city. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to say directly, I think, being proactive for the needs of the future and understanding we need to use the land more efficiently and allow for higher population density. I agree with all that. I provided in writing yesterday to Victor, and I think he shared it to the committee today, just some analysis I did specific to that region of the city. And I won't go into the numbers here, For multiple reasons. One, I don't want to bore everyone. Two, there could be some mistakes, and I want you to independently review that and just verify that my numbers are correct. But generally speaking, versus the properties that are there, as we migrate to the residential neighborhood code, the new requirements would allow the current parcel minimum to be less than half of the smallest parcel currently in that section of town. And roughly a fifth of the size of the median parcel that currently exists. My point is, I am concerned that it could drastically alter the character of the neighborhood. And so I would just appreciate you to investigate that further, and I know you'll do a good job, so thank you.
Thank you. You have thoughts on the? Yes.
Hi, Allison Larson, 255 East Bluff. We already are a walkable city. All the businesses you had listed for the accessory units, we already have in our city that are accessible by bike or feet. It would take away our privacy in our neighborhoods if our neighbor put a kiosk in their front yard selling sandwiches or whatever it may be. And then what happens when and if they go out of business? Does the building still stay in their yard? Is there a stipulation for where it's placed on the yard? My other concern is chickens. Keep the agricultural community or zoning, allow chickens there. We do need produce, chickens, etc. It's vital for our city. I don't want them in my neighbor's yard or my yard. We already have coyotes and fox roaming around in our neighborhood. That's just going to encourage more. And then my other comment is your zoning for sex-oriented businesses. Why would you want to degrade our community like that? You're already proposing a pot shop.
Yeah, well,
now you want sex businesses.
I can tell you, we'll definitely address that right now. Yeah. I definitely understand your concern. Elsa, was there anything else? I'm sorry.
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's Gretchen Pretty, 615 East Bluff, and my husband Keith. So a lot of my comments were already covered, so thank you for that. But just in general, I think what you're trying to do is not a bad thing, because you're trying to simplify the code, and I do understand that that's necessary, and I can see where there's some benefits there. I think where I'm having a struggle is some of the things you're trying to also implement as you're simplifying. And here are some of the main topics. I don't really feel like density is that desirable. This town is not Ann Arbor, it's not Traverse City, it's not Spokane. I mean, it's Harbor Springs. I don't think we have this population surge that is calling for quadplexes, duplexes, triplexes. And I think it changes the character of a very charming town that we've all, been drawn to, that we want to live here. I also question, where would those cars park? If you're building a building and it has now, 8 residents in it, and let's say at least 8, where are those cars going to be? There's not a garage, it's all on-street parking. I mean, it's gonna look like Lincoln Park in Chicago, places like that where you've just got cars everywhere lining and vying for a place to park every night. So I'm not really in favor of that. In terms of the transitioning as seniors, which is what we basically are, we want to live here as long as we can, but we realize maybe we have to call upon a Perry Farm Village. We have to go to one of the, I just did a simple Google search, senior care, Emmett County, almost 3 dozen hits. So to me, there are resources here that's both in-home care that comes to you, and it's also residents, living in assisted living. So I feel like that's pretty much covered. I don't feel like I need to build a building, some sort of a little shack in my yard to try to take care of that. I would probably rely on the resources that are already there. Really not in favor of the ACUs for reasons that Allison pointed out. I feel like that's a disruption to the neighborhood. It's businesses that you mentioned are great businesses, but I feel like they're already here in our town. through the farmer's market, through the uptown and downtown. I feel like we've covered it. I don't really feel like that's something that I would want to see. Certainly would not want to see chickens. And I think just in closing, have you done, or would you consider doing a formal survey of the 1,000 residents that live here? And I mean, the hearings are great, but maybe do a formal survey instrument that goes to just the, you know, residents that are paying taxes here, and then really digest that information, not just AARP and all these other sources, but right here from your own residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a couple people online.
Okay, let's go to online.
Brenda Miller. Brenda, if you could unmute yourself.
Hello, Miranda, can you hear us? Let's come back to Miranda.
We'll go to Henry Schneider. Okay,
hello, Henry.
Are you there?
Yes.
I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Good, thank you. Thanks for doing this. I live on Glen Drive, and I have a couple questions and then a comment. First question is it possible for us to get a copy of the current zoning with an overlay of what it will look like when it's redone? Is that possible?
I'm taking your question down, Henry.
Okay. Second question is, in doing this survey, which is, you spent a lot of time and a lot of good energy and a lot of forethought, would be really good if you had somebody on the planning or zoning or whatever committee that had some healthcare experience, some long-term care experience, some assisted living experience. And if you need somebody who's out of town, I did this for 50 years, okay? So I'm willing to contribute whatever time you need or would want or would care to have to help you in any way, to help the community in any way, share with you experiences from the first assisted living facility built that was not affiliated with a nonprofit to the first Alzheimer's facility built anywhere in the United States called the Alois Alzheimer's Center. So you've got a good resource here, and I'm willing to share it. The third thing I would say to you is, I know the residents, the 1,000 residents that live there pay taxes. I would never want them to forget that the 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 people who come, who are summer residents, pay a lot of taxes. And you should probably consider that when you think about who should be surveyed or not surveyed. That's it. Thank you for your time. Thanks for unmuting me. It was very difficult. Thank you, Victor.
I believe Maggie and Miranda had their hands up. Maggie, you had your hand up if you want to mute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Maggie Lacey, 315 East 3rd Street. I wanted to just reiterate the additional businesses that you guys are trying to pull into the community. One is to bring in marijuana shops as well as the adult shops. I understand we're trying to get more businesses, look at the economy, but I don't understand why we always try to go to the lowest common denominator of what other towns are doing versus elevating Harbor Springs and letting Harbor Springs be unique. And I think that would draw a higher quality of businesses into our community, as well as making sure that we are not contributing to what's already in our community, because we have to deal with what's happening with our youth and so forth. And so those are my two things, as well as why are we doing this in the winter when we should do this when we have a larger audience to participate. And that is the people that might not be able to vote, but do have a say because they do pay taxes in this community. So that's on my 2 cents I had to participate for tonight.
Got it. Thank you, Maggie.
Miranda, I'll try you one more time here. Want to unmute yourself?
Okay, hi, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Victor, it was saying on there that I couldn't unmute unless you would unmute me. I tried it like 7 times. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to piggyback on what Allison and Gretchen and what Maggie said. I was going to bring up the same thing, but it appears to me, first of all, I have a major problem when reading with this whole thing in the neighborhoods when you're discussing the reasoning that you want to bring in these little small kiosk businesses that everybody can pop up in their neighborhoods for a sense of community. We have a sense of community. The city is only 1.5 roughly square miles. The downtown and the neighborhoods are a teardrop in that. As a sense of community, we enjoyed the privacy of our neighborhoods. That is our community. We've had VRBOs, which are small businesses already, with people moving in and out every weekend, strangers wandering our streets, walking up in our driveways, asking us if we'll rent our houses. Our sense of community comes when we can walk just a few feet, down the street. That gravely concerns me. And also, it appears to me that this is a 15-minute city. The module that you're trying to make here, a 15-minute city concept, is those were basically made to reduce carbon emissions by decreasing the use of cars. And it's a decentralized urban planning model in which each local neighborhood contains all the basic social functions for living and working. We already have that. So I think that I've been here my whole life. We've watched Harbor Springs change, but trying to push in high density and forcing sense of community on us, the taxpayers, first of all, I think is a terrible idea. I don't think this city, in infrastructure wise, it's going to be cost prohibitive. The taxpayers are going to have to pay for all of this. So I just think that this city cannot handle any more high density than we already have. You're just putting layer upon layer. That's my 2 cents that I wanted to add in. So thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. Great.
That's all we have on Zoom.
Any more comments from folks in the room? Yes, sir.
My name is Dawson Moore. I live at 7759 Marion Drive, just about a mile outside the city in West Traverse Township. I've got comments on maybe 2 areas. One, just from the perspective of a young family, as far as the more housing options go, I see it kind of constantly, other families with kids at school and that kind of thing, having to live 20, 30, 40 minutes outside of town. I've had multiple friends that have had to move out of town, again, 20, 30, 40 minutes while still maintaining jobs within the city limits. I myself, even with free land from family, would find it difficult to build a house here with the current zoning. So I think giving some relief to young families with some more housing options is a very good thing. And then the kind of second line of commenting would be that my family owns, I was eyeballing it, probably 25 to 30% of the agricultural district. And based off listening to your previous planning commission meeting when some of those issues were addressed, I appreciated your sentiments in not seeming to, you don't view it as a taking away of agricultural rights. You mentioned perhaps needing special approval for commercial use. I certainly don't think you will be flooded with special use permits for commercial farming activities in the city, given how expensive that proposition is. And it didn't seem like residential agricultural uses were an issue for you guys. So based on that, my family is supportive of the changes you guys are proposing. And I just want to remind people that, you know, yes, some people want to keep the rural agricultural character, but you're asking, you know, individual families to subsidize your views is a, you know, a challenging perspective to maintain, I think.
Edit Dawson?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, any other comments in the room or on Zoom at this time?
I don't see any hands.
All right. You can make a motion. Yep, so it feels like Bruce had their say, so we would need a motion to close the public hearing. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. All right, public hearing is closed at 6:44 PM. 1:43 by the satellite. Right, thank you so much, everybody. This has just been great. And now Planning Commission could elect to discuss some of these things or to at least answer some of the questions. I think that's the minimum that we should do for you right now. And so let's go right to the sexually oriented businesses and the marijuana. All right, just to be clear, this Planning Commission is not looking to encourage those business uses in the city. And John Michaelangeli is our Beckett and Rader professional urban planning consultant. And he's going to tell us why we have to have that somewhat uncomfortable language about sexually oriented businesses in our zoning code.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Well, first, the code is not encouraging or allowing marijuana-related businesses in the community. City Council's already made that decision that they're not going to happen. Regarding sexually oriented businesses, the courts all the way up to the Supreme Court have ruled that sexually oriented businesses are part of a person's right to have a business. The courts in the state of Michigan and other appellate courts have basically ruled that if a city does not allow them in a district and somebody then applies to have one in the community, there is nothing prevented that they can have a sexually oriented business in the community. So the ordinance is set up to define it and to relegate it to the M1 district, the industrial park or the industrial district in the community. So it's actually a proactive step on making sure that it's regulated. And if it would happen, it would be in the light industrial district. So it's basically a tactic to basically restrict these type of businesses in the community. So that's why it's in there.
Okay, just to reiterate, no one on the Planning Commission is looking to encourage sexually oriented businesses or marijuana to locate in the city of Purple Springs, right? Good. All right, one of the other questions and focus of a number of discussions were the agricultural uses that could be permitted under the new proposed zoning. And John, could you give us what we need to know about that?
Yeah, under the way the code is set up, the AG district would be changed to residential neighborhood. Uses or properties within that zone that currently have agricultural uses would still be able to continue those by right. If someone bought a piece of property in the RN district in any RN district, not just in the area that's ag, but any of the RN districts, they could apply for a special use permit to create an agricultural business. So the ordinance is not precluding it or prohibiting it. Those that are still in operation or in the current ag district are allowed by, they can continue using it by right. If someone wanted to take a piece of property there and actually start an ag use, they could come before the planning commission and get a special use permit, depending on what the impacts would be. Agricultural in the city of Harbor Springs is regulated, or it's very limited, basically to plant-based agricultural uses. There's no livestock. Livestock is prohibited in the city. So no one could have a cattle farm or raise sheep. Basically, you could grow corn, wheat, vegetables, those type of ag uses on the property, orchard, vineyard, if you had the property to accommodate that.
Did anybody hear anything else about agricultural use that we should clarify?
I would just want to emphasize that residential agriculture, if you want to plant 10 fruit trees in your yard just for your use.
You can do that, yeah.
That doesn't require any approval.
Or have a garden.
Yeah, or have a garden, that's not.
Yeah, agricultural use is really defined as a commercial operation. So if somebody wanted to have their own vineyard and make their own wine, they can do that. If they want to have their own apple trees, they can do that. It's basically agricultural as it would be a commercial operation.
Yeah, oh, there is one sub point on this. So someone who has what they would consider an agricultural use today on their property, the city is not looking to stop that use. That would continue.
Can I extend on that?
Yep, please.
So is that permission to continue using then saleable with the property, or does it end at the next transaction of that property?
If it's a special use, it runs with the property, not with the owner.
Okay. But if it's an existing facility that's grandfathered in, how would that be handled?
Well, if they don't have an agricultural production on the property and they sell it, and then the new person wants to start a commercial orchard, then they'd have to come before the planning commission for special use. But let me point out, there is the greenhouse over on Lake Street. Yeah, that is actually currently residential, so it's non-conforming, but under the new code, that type of facility would be it's currently non-conforming, but as an example, in a residential district, you could have an agricultural use, and that greenhouse and that nursery there, or that floral shop is a great example of that.
And to add to that, I think people have mentioned the Right to Farm Act. We're expanding allowable places in the city where you can farm with the special land use approval, because currently it's only regulated to the agricultural AR district, but with special land use will be allowed in any residential neighborhood. So that's something to keep in mind when people speak of the Right to Farm Act. It's actually being expanded.
Any other comments on agricultural use tonight? Okay. Here's another one that I took down. That is a question about, could an association kind of override the zoning decisions that we are making? Okay. Jeff and Victor, care to comment on?
I don't mind.
Okay.
So the question was posed, could a condominium project have smaller requirements allowing for smaller pieces of property? And the answer would be no. I don't believe they could. The city of Harbor Springs has its regulations and requirements, and anything that would be proposed as a by right use for splitting property or kind of minimizing would have to meet those requirements. The condominium project could impose further restrictions upon themselves, but they would still have to meet the city of Harbor Springs requirements. With that said, though, there is also the potential through a planned development project where rules could be I guess, adjusted potentially pending further discussion and public meetings with the planning commission for something that they want to do as a special project. But that would require further permissions and approvals and agreements with the city. And public hearings, of course, yes.
Okay, another question I took down or concern was from Leona about short-term rentals. And Victor, do you have any, could you comment on how you see the short-term rental license process evolve?
I'll let Jeff answer that.
Okay.
So we did recognize that with this change, there was the combination of a district that did not have a limitation on short-term rentals with another district that does. And that is something that, should this be proposed and the zoning code updated and changed, that we would need to make city council aware of so that they could readdress the issue on how they wanted to handle that situation.
I'm just looking for anything else we can address tonight.
Are you only taking questions from the panel or
Yeah,
not
we're,
from us?
yeah, we're back to our discussion up here. And let's see, going to Sue Winter's comments, and she said that she believes flag lots would look urban. Anybody have any comments or thoughts on that?
I'll weigh in if you like.
Okay.
So I don't see there are a lot of opportunities for flag lots in the city based on current minimum lot sizes. There are some, so.
We are a flag lot.
Right. They are in areas of certainly lesser density today. So I struggle with the comment of urbanization because they would be not in areas that are already have small enough lots that you wouldn't be able to put one on. So it would make those less dense areas of the city perhaps look a little more like other parts of the city that have smaller lots today, which I don't find that urban or objectionable.
Because I think the scale, or limitation on sizes of, the size of our lots and the buildings that go on them. I think the scale speaks to the density. As long as the scale's appropriate, we'll keep the charm and keep, things that are important to everybody.
Well, and 33% of the homes are under association, which wouldn't allow.
I allow them anyway.
Right, so it is very limited number and.
Is that the number 33%?
Somewhere.
I'm guessing, is it 25?
I didn't realize it was that high.
I just guessed.
So,
Kind of going off of the flag lots, adding to that conversation was the idea of more density or smaller lots, smaller homes, and planning commission, not all of you were on here, but back in 2021, 2022, we did extensive surveys with a reach of between 150 and 300 people on each survey. The number one desirable type of house was a smaller house with a smaller lot. By far, that was the number one thing that people wanted to see in this community. That's kind
Yeah,
of what.
Victor, could you say that again? So, planning commission members, I passed out. There's the two questions from the survey from 2022. Housing, when we were preparing to do the master plan. And so Victor, could you say that again?
Right, so one of the questions we asked public was, what types of housing would you like to see in Harbor Springs to encourage more of within the city limits? The number one answer, this was 182 replies, but the number one answer was by 68% of people responding yes to smaller single homes on smaller lots. So smaller single family homes on smaller lots is the number one response. So this was part of the master plan surveys, which created the master plan goals, which is fueling our work here. So we did extensive surveying. I mean, it's up to the plan commission if you want to do more surveying, but we did extensive surveying for how we came to some of these zoning code changes based on the master plan surveys.
Could you tell us what the number two answer was?
Yeah, duplexes, triplexes, and townhouses.
Yeah, the one thing that I think the when you take a look at people, first reaction to duplex is density, or they want, it's gonna cause more people to be in the neighborhood. But you have to remember back in 1970, 1980, the size of the average, the median size of households was close to 3 people. And probably back in 1970, you had 4 to 5 people living in a single family home. Today, even if you have a duplex, you may only have 2 people living in the duplex, 1 on each side. Probably no more in a duplex than you would have in a single family home that had 4 people living in it. So household sizes over the years have come down. And if you have a duplex or a triplex, in many cases, you're not increasing the number of people that you had living on that same lot 30 years ago. So based on even the data that you showed, where the population is aging and the household size is decreasing. So it provides more access to housing. You're not necessarily going to see a greater number in population.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see, another topic that I took down was the concept of shouldn't this be done in the summer?
Well, from a administrative perspective on what we do here, as you see, we have 12 people on Zoom. I mean, we allow people to participate in multiple ways. So I felt like that makes it easier for people to participate from wherever they're at right now. But of course, it's, up to the planning commission at the pace you guys want to go at.
And we're coming up on 3 years of discussion, getting ready for the master plan. We've had a couple town hall meetings on short-term rentals and housing issues. We've previewed this a number of times. We've produced storyboards. Harbor Light has covered it extensively. So process hasn't been fast, and it has been well attended and well received, I believe.
Yeah, I concur. We've done, I think it's been a long process from the master planning to all the surveying work that was done. Before the master planning process really started to, where we are now. And there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. And, there's no secrets here. We've had lots of public meetings. People can tune in if they want to. You could have tuned in anytime in the past 3.5 years.
All right, those are the main notes I had. Anybody else pick up anything that?
Well, one thing that came up a couple of times was the ACUs.
Oh, great.
And just, there's definitely some pushback on ACUs. I personally like the idea of them, but, some good points were made. So I think that's something that maybe to
I think one of
discuss a
the
little bit
things we
more.
didn't say about ACUs was they had to be, the owner had to be the operator of the ACU. I don't think it's in the written up thing, but unless you've read the whole thing. So it's not that someone can have an ACU and let someone else run that business. The idea is to provide our some residents with another way to make some income, but also, I know people have talked a lot about this being a walkable community. I agree that it can be walked, but it certainly can't be walked all over in 15 minutes carrying bags of groceries. I think there's really some room for some other small businesses. I don't think they would hurt the other businesses. I think that's my own personal opinion, but I do think it's important that ACUs, we understand that they're owner operated on site.
Yeah.
I think,
And I think Allison might have asked about where they could be located.
yeah, and that's also in the write-up on the zoning code too. There's real specific.
But I also said,
We can't take any more public
go out of
comments right
business.
now.
And Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, these are also, or John, special land uses.
Yes.
They're not by right.
Correct. Yeah. And I think the one thing that I think the people on the committee know it. I don't think it was in the slideshow, is that historically Harbor Springs has had guest houses, which have had to go through special land use approval and public hearing. The ADUs, the accessory dwelling unit, is going to replace guest houses. And it's going to be a lot less onerous in terms of their approval process. So guest houses is being phased out. And now we're gonna be referring to them and structures as accessory dwelling units. So,
And whether it's an accessory commercial unit or an accessory dwelling unit, we're still keeping the same number, or proposing to keep the same number of accessory buildings on a property.
lot,
So,
same lot coverage.
so they're not, this is not an increase in number of buildings.
Correct.
And they would still have to meet the dimensional setback requirements, all of those other things
And
too.
in the architectural.
The one comment that was brought up once, but I'm sure will be brought up more, probably is related to parking. When it comes to accessory commercial units and or larger or duplexes or triplexes, for example, and those are valid points. Where would people park? And I know the idea is for accept ACUs is for walkable businesses, but do we have anything in the code specifying about allowing increased maximum parking, minimum parking, or anything like that?
No,
Not for the ACUs.
We did for dwelling units,
We did
that's
for
correct.
dwelling.
So if there was a duplex or a triplex,
they'd have to.
there is a minimum and maximum parking requirement for those. So it shouldn't push parking out onto the streets.
That's correct.
There is some requirement for on-site parking for those.
But for an ACU, would that be determined by the special land use hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as the chairman mentioned, you know, there are businesses that are probably already operating in the community that operate within the home, like, for example, music, educational tutoring, maybe counseling, architect that has a sole proprietorship. Those people may not want to work in the house, but maybe work in a ACU that's on the same lot, but outside of the home. And it is, I think the committee was looking at it based on also what's going on with remote working trends. Is that some people may they may not work in an office, they really don't want to work in their bedroom, but they may want to have a structure outside of their home where they have their office. So you're not really encouraging additional parking because maybe it's the same people it's the same people living on the lot that are working in the ACU. So.
Also, I think the scale of the ACUs are pretty small.
They
They're
are.
very small
They're
and it's not going to increase.
And
user traffic.
bakeries are not allowed.
Yeah. Thank you.
And an accessory building cannot be in your front yard. So if there was concern about that.
They can't be in the front yard. They have to follow the same requirements as an accessory building, which the community has always allowed. So they follow the same guidelines as an accessory structure.
Okay, planning commission members, we don't have to decide anything tonight, we're just taking input and ideas, and we got it. We got a lot of it, it was great. I want to thank the members of the public again, very, very much for coming out and tuning in tonight to give us your thoughts. It was just what we were looking for.
We do have another public hearing meeting next Thursday.
Yep, so we're gonna do this again, 1 week from tonight, same time, same place. All right, any other agenda items you'd like to discuss?
Bill, I have one comment for the planning commission.
Yes.
I know that some of the PC members have already funneled in some of their comments to you. If anybody else on the PC that hasn't done it, funnel them into Bill so the committee can start going through them and making the appropriate edits.
Great.
Sorry, I edited you.
You took them all, right?
Everybody good to adjourn at this point? All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.